It's magic. It's magic. Welcome, everybody, to the 9 buyer types training. This is going to be an incredibly exciting training. Welcome, everyone. Melanie Saladino is here. Say hello to Melanie.
Yay!
And we're just getting so educated in all the little tech intricacies of Google's fascinating world. So we're all set to go. This is going to be an amazing training. I've been building up to this for months. We're going to jump right into it. We've got about an hour of training. This is Melanie's signature training. She's been developing this system for at least a good year, Melanie, yeah?
It feels like a year. I actually checked the dates. It started at the end of August.
Okay, so we started, but you were using it in your own copywriting before we even began to discuss making it a training.
Yeah, long before it was ever a thing. It was something up here, yeah.
You were giving yourself little happy stickers for using it and developing it.
Gold star. I've actually moved on to gold stars with ice cream cones. It's pretty exciting.
Very nice. Melanie motivates herself with stickers.
Yeah, because of the Celebrate Me buyer. What can you do?
So you're going to learn all about the 9 buyer profiles today. And I tell you why I keep calling this revolutionary is because it is the first time I've seen something so laid out in black and white that made me realize, wow, as great as any sales letter is, it's surely overlooking a large part of the prospect market. And there's some simple fixes to this, and there are some more complex fixes to this. But Melanie has done her best to make it all really actionable for us. Her amazing download is over at melaniesaladino.com. You definitely want that as an accompaniment to this training. And let's just get into it, Melanie. I'm really excited to hand you the controls here and let you. I just want to make sure, I guess I should say hello to everybody and make sure everybody can see and hear us. Pretty sure that's the case, but just say yes, yes, yes. Hey, go Melanie, if you can see and hear us. And then I'm going to hand the controls over to Melanie, and we will see her gorgeous slide deck, which she perfected, just like she perfects everything she does. So yes, everybody can see and hear us. We got Christina, John, Cindy's in the house. Ross is here. Mark Sadal. Okay, great. All the way from the UK. So it's evening for him and Dean. So let's rock, Melanie.
All right,
go grab your deck and let's rock.
Okay, so we're going to share the screen with everybody. My sweet little laptop that just keeps on going and going because I refuse to buy a fresh new one. Because because then I'd have to retire the old one, and then there would be a ceremony.
Right, a ceremony. I can see it now.
Okay.
All right, you're in control. We're off and running. I will monitor the comments. There will be no stopping for questions or anything, guys. But if you do have them, please use the question function in there in the chats, and we'll make sure we'll kind of take them in order. This is about a 60-minute training, and at the end of that, we will take Q&A. So, hi, Wardy. Hey, Nick. Everybody's here, and let's rock.
All right, let's do this. All right, so I'm going to start with a story, which is where I start everything. And that is this fascination that I have with why people do things. And I started out as so it really starts with me as a teenager on the back porch, sitting in a lounge chair, and my friend telling me all her troubles. And she says, you really should become a psychologist. You're great at this. And I said, no, I don't really want to, because it wouldn't ever be my turn to talk. And I like to talk. And so that was the end of that dream. And then someone else said, you should really be a lawyer because you kind of have that mind that works like that. I'm like, yeah, but then you have to be mean all the time. And I have no interest in that. And then I thought, okay, I'll become a teacher. And I was pretty good at that. So I taught 9th grade algebra. And if any of you feel like, wow, this is a really technical training, or like I'm not getting it right now, I can tell you this. There was this one kid, and so I happened to be having a baby that year, and this one kid was in my class. It was his 3rd time through this class, and nobody told me that the chances of him failing this class again were very high. And so I taught the class to the best of my ability, and I left to have the baby, and I came back for a visit, and now I'm crouched over the baby, tucking blankets and doing whatever you do with babies. and I feel this giant hug from behind, and you are never ever supposed to touch your students. And so I freaked out, and I turn around, and it's this kid, and he's red hair and freckles, and he's smiling, and I'm like, what is even going on right now? And he said, I passed the class, thank you so much, I got a 70, I'm going to be able to graduate now.
Wow.
So yes, there are lots of complicated concepts, and they're all very approachable and accessible by anybody who cares to learn them. So that's that. And
we are in good hands.
Yes, we're going to be okay. So now, let's see here. Look how cute we are. Can you even stand it?
It looks like, yes, we're ready to conquer the world together.
Oh, okay. Well, now that we've got that under control, so I'll be teaching, but Kevin's going to make sure we have color commentary because I get lonely. Because the truth of the matter is it's actually better in front of an audience where I can see all your sweet eyeballs and tell you jokes that I think are going to make you laugh. So I don't want to feel lonely, so no, watch out for that. All right, so here's where we are. So in this class, we're going to be talking about the 9 buyer types, and each one has a hidden question associated with it. So there are 9 of those, and to make it easy to remember, I developed something called the safety excitement scale. And you can look at it as sort of like a way to weight. Say you were baking bread, you could measure it by weight, or you could think of it as a racetrack. And so we'll look at it from both perspectives. So what you're going to learn is a clear understanding of how all 9 buyers make their decisions, which is interesting because they'll usually lie because, you know, we usually don't know our own minds anyway. We just do what we do and then we try to justify it later, and that's just so normal. Yeah, but for those of us who are in sales, we don't have the luxury of winging our way through life. We have to know where we're going. We're the drivers around here. So it's best to be in charge of the map at least. I'm also going to give you some tools to increase your sales and by strategically creating emotional copy, which is something of a misnomer because emotions aren't strategic at all, but that's the way it is because we're in sales and we write and that's our job. And I'm also going to give you the ability to balance safety and excitement, which in my opinion is the single most important thing you can do to increase sales, because balance matters and motion matters, and we're going to be talking about both. So what I'd like you to take from this class is the ability to feel rock solid that all your sales letters build strategic emotional connections with your ideal customers. I want you to be able to be emotional with people on purpose and for a purpose. And that's because of that phenomenon that says sales are made emotionally first and justified with logic later. And it's something that exists. It's something we can't fight, but it is something we can learn and use to our advantage. So that's what we're going to do. So this class, I would say, is the brain science way to capture your customer's heart, their money, and their loyalty by answering their 9 hidden questions. Now, if I had made this a beautiful aerial map with the 40,000 foot view, it would be more attractive than this, but it might not be this useful. So what I'm saying here is that the reason you might be coming to this material is that you have slow sales, or perhaps your customers are less than ideal. This could show up as something like low conversions, high customer turnover, customer service issues, high return rates, bank chargebacks, and reduced profits. In the real world, this is like showing up at your doctor and saying, I've got a fever and a cough that's been going on for 3 weeks. And he goes, oh, what you've actually got is pneumonia. And then they give you the pink liquid and you go on home, right? Well, if you don't go to the doctor, you spend all your time trying to solve this one cough and this one fever, and you don't ever actually get to the core of the problem, and now you're going nowhere. So I'm saying this problem is actually being caused by something I call a lack of strategic emotional connection. And that point where you can intersect with that best is at the point of sale. And so for us, that means when they intersect with our emails or with our sales letters.
Awesome. Hey, Melanie.
Yes.
Of course, there's some little issue here.
Of course there is.
Slide deck is coming across very blurry for some reason. It looks fine to me where I'm on the broadcast with you.
Okay.
Noticing for most of the audience, Jason says it looks good for him. 2 people have mentioned it's blurry. I'm seeing it as a little blurry.
I don't know how. I don't have a focus button. What does that mean?
There isn't. But it looks like it's coming a little better. So that's what I wanted to hear from more people. So it looks like about half the people are saying it looks okay, and for just a few of us, it's coming up blurry. So let's just carry on. I'll edit this part out of the training.
Thank you.
And we're good. It's coming in clearer for me now. So if it is blurry for you, I think it will it'll clear up soon enough. Just be patient. And we will put the slides in with the training so you'll be able to read everything. So
absolutely. Another interesting thing about this is that the slides themselves very closely follow the report. So if anybody printed the report, which I highly recommend you do, go ahead and take notes right on the report, and then you'll be able to map across for your questions.
Great.
So the solution we're going to be talking about today is something I call the 9 buyers system. And I tried calling it fancier names, but the reality is that there are 9 types of buyers and they do what they do, and it's knowable, repeatable, and learnable. And so you're going to discover why people really buy, and you're going to use that ability to boost the emotional selling power of your copy, allowing you to increase sales and get better customers, because better customers rock. Okay. The 9 buyer system, it's actually a buying psychology system. And I got it in my head a while ago that I wanted to have a PhD. Some people say that's a good idea, some people not. But dude, it's a PhD and I really want one. And so I looked all around.
Something, it happens. This I know.
Right? Okay, I also secretly have desire to get a PhD in writing poetry, and you'll probably hear that in my emails because of the way I make things sound. But that's for my second PhD maybe. But anyway, I looked all over the country and there are no good buying psychology PhD programs. I don't know if that makes me weird or if there's no money in it or what that's about, but I made my own. So you could say the 9 buyer system is my PhD program. So I used neuroscience, some gender role information, and personality typing and classic salesmanship to put together this system. A system like this works because your ideal buyers are only in their ideal buying mood a third of the time. Most of the time, people are all over the map. When they are in their home base, if your message is built properly, you're going to connect with your ideal customer. But what if they're having an awesome day? Or what if they're having a lousy day? Or what if they're having a lousy month? And weirdly, what if they're actually in their problem right now? So maybe they'd be ideal after the problem is solved, but you actually need them when they're in their biggest mess so that you can take them through to the solution. So what you need is an ability to connect with your audience no matter what mood they're in. So first piece is, am I landing with my ideal customer? Second piece is, am I catching them more than a third of the time? Because if you're not, you're leaving money on the table. The way we typically do marketing is we look at demographics, who they are, how much money they make, other stuff they buy. Then we look at psychographics, what magazines they read, what related products they buy. And then there's this tip in the copywriting books called make it emotional. And that's where it goes off the rails, because what even is that?
Right.
But the reality is that most people have an emotion set that they go to over and over again, and you can know what that is. There's no reason to guess. And there's so many emotions, and why would you bother to write to them all? So what I want to give you is the ability to write to the most common emotions most of the time in a specific order, so that the way the information appears in their brain is the way you're writing to it. So someday I hope there's a thing called emotion graphics or something similar, because it's just such a useful tool. Now we have a lot of new information on neuroscience that we didn't have years ago, things like fMRIs, which are totally awesome. And in the early 2000s, we thought, okay, there's this thing called the amygdala, and it is the pleasure center of the brain. And so what we should do is write our copy so that people go towards pleasure and away from pain, right? And we finally had a way to look at the brain and justify that old adage, and that was cool. And then more recently, we've been increasing the quality of the images we're able to get. And what we can see is there's actually 3 completely different structures in the brain that work together to make a decision. And it's basically, should I move towards this or away from it?
Yeah. That's really kind of what this all comes down to is, and we hear this a little bit in NLP, but this idea of, it's not just words, right? It is emotions. And this is the closest I've seen to getting to the heart of those emotions. I want to go back to what you made a great point, Melanie, about we say, make sure it's emotional. And I think people sometimes just add power words or, look for stronger verbs and things that's not a targeted emotion, right? And the difference here is that you're going to help us target in on the emotions that are going to make the difference to draw people towards our messaging and ultimately our offer rather than be pushed away by it.
Exactly. So for example, the word new. New is a power word, so is free.
Mm-hmm.
So is guaranteed. So is 100%. So is on sale. But are these things emotions, and are they emotional? And we only have this one tool. We've got the words. And so in some ways we're limited because we don't get that belly to belly experience where I can look at your eyes, or I can tell a story that's going to resonate with you, or I can ask you what your criteria is. Why are you buying a minivan instead of a subcompact? Like, I have no idea. I can't ask you these things.
Right.
And so my ability to use my words to get across an emotion, and sometimes without even saying it, like, can I say new without the word new? And if I can I say it in an emotional way so that it lands on you and you get the feel of new, but I never actually said it? How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
So there are the three pieces in the brain. There's some complicated names that aren't relevant for here, but they're basically looking for three things. This one is enjoying. Do I like this? We move towards things we like. We move away from things we don't like. Do I enjoy this? Expecting says, have I seen this before? It's a little like Pavlov's dogs, right? And so am I going to get a knowable, repeatable result? I've seen this before. I'm expecting this. Do I want it? Okay, cool. And eagerness says we're curious people. We like new, we like fresh, we like exciting. And if we can attach that emotion to it, now we're onto something. But you need to get all three of them moving in the same direction or it's not going to fly. So there are three things that make this super complicated. Right?
Yeah.
Because why not make this harder? So for writers, if you've ever said, I know I'm not the market, but,
mm-hmm.
and then whatever you say next, I can guarantee you is a blinder.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is confirmation bias. And if you've printed the report, which again, please print the report because it's awesome and I spent a lot of time on it. But there's some extra information on this, so I'm going to fly through these so that you just can hear them once or twice in your brain, and then when you go to read the report, you're like, oh, that's right, that's what she meant. All right, so confirmation says, we interpret new information based on a previous belief. The short version of this is don't fight people and don't bother to re-educate them. Go with what they already believe, and then if you need to do a gentle redirect, you're going to be okay. But if you're looking at a crowd that believes X and you're trying to teach them Y, it's a losing situation for you. Just go get a different crowd. And the next one says irrational escalation. We ignore new evidence if it undermines a decision that we've already made. Basically, we like to agree with ourselves. So anytime you can use a yes and statement, you're going to do better. Now, as the writer, if you've got an internal bias that says, I've already decided this and I'm going to keep going down this path, it's important to check your work there because it's possible your audience doesn't agree with that and you can lose them in your own mindset. So writing mindset is going to be super important.
So I just want to stop there for a second because you know that this strikes me as on its own the most important thing writers need to understand, and something that we all kind of go, I know I'm not the market, but like you said, we always put in that but, right? Well, that means that you're just about to lay on the bias and it's going to affect how the campaign is constructed. You know, it's just going to. And so how do we identify, I guess we're going to get into this a little more, but the thing I want everybody to listen for and think about is how do we make sure that we're identifying our own bias, just acknowledge that it's there and see it, and then know that it's being addressed, which is probably new in the first place. And then there's 8 others that need to be addressed. And I just want to set this flare up so everybody's really focused on what it is we're talking about and why this is so critical. Can you imagine how many sales letters are out there that are converting well, but still contain marketing bias and still only contain, even if it is solved for that particular buyer type, there's 8 others it hasn't even addressed, and how much conversions will increase when those tweaks have been made so that it's addressing all those other buyer types. It's huge. I get excited.
It's a big deal. And one of the simplest ways to solve that is to open a new screen with a text editor and write these words across the top, like, I am biased. And then write down your biases. I think this product is great. I think this price point is totally fair. I think that anybody who does not buy this product is a complete fool. And like, just really download and go for it. Because the other thing is you're kidding yourself. You absolutely come to everything with a bias. And if you're willing to acknowledge your own biases and then start saying, okay, now what else is true? Everything that everybody does makes sense from some perspective. So no matter how crazy the behavior is that a person's doing, if you ask yourself, in what way, what else would I have to believe in order for this action to make sense? And just start making a list, you'll be amazed at what you learn.
Yes, absolutely. Huge.
All right, so the next one is social desirability, which is we make choices we think are socially acceptable when we're being watched. This matters. This can matter in things like writer's block, or it can matter in terms of products. Like you might have someone that on Facebook says, I'd love to buy X if you guys ever come up with one, and then you make it and nobody buys it. So when you're thinking about your messaging, think about where it's going to be presented, because if it's going to be presented in social media, then you're going to get a different response than the message you present in the privacy of email. So you might end up needing to modify your message slightly to account for the privacy issues. The next one is framing effect, which is how you present something is more important than what it actually is. And this one makes me feel a little sad because some things are just inherently wonderful, and how you frame it matters. So you're going to always need to make sure that you're putting your stuff out there in the best light, but also in the most genuine light that you can, so that people can make an honest assessment. We're looking for clean offers, clearly presented, and so people can make solid decisions. That's really all this is about.
Right.
And the next one is knowledge bias, which is we like familiar things more than we like things that are actually better. So when you're using that word better in your copy, try to think about how better can also be made familiar, because you're going to get the best leverage there.
Huge.
All right, women and men.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what's weird. Most of the online shopping is done by women, but most of the copywriting is done by men. And I feel pretty qualified to talk about this because I'm a girl. So I feel like it's okay for me to say that. But what happens is that it can be a little tricky to get inside the head of somebody else, particularly if that other person is the opposite gender.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see that daily in my
right? If you've ever tried to convince, I don't know, do you have to convince your teenage daughter to do certain things?
She's 9, so you know,
She's
I'm
still
not quite there yet. Yeah,
yeah,
she's still, half of her still wants me to be happy with her.
Aww.
When that goes away, I'm sure this is going to be much more interesting.
Right. I've got them all ages now. I've got 7, 11, 14, 17, and 20.
Incredible. Wow.
And 4 of them are girls. And so my son adores his mommy and very much wants me to be happy, and also wants to be his own man. And so that's tricky. And my daughters, some of them are like, Mommy, I love you, and here's a card I made for you, and please smile. And some of them are like, what are you even doing with your life, Mom? Can I just lecture you on that? And I've got everything in the middle. Like, you guys, you know I'm doing my best, right? Yeah, that's the way with women.
That's
so we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. Now, this one is super interesting, and this is one of the first things that you and I connected on, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember clearly at one of our very first conversations, you said, your voice, Melanie. And I had just never thought of it, because it's mine, right? The fish in the little fishbowl doesn't think, wow, look at all this water. He just thinks, yep, this is my world.
Right.
And so when someone else shows up and said, oh, it's the voice, it took quite a bit of thinking for me to figure out what the heck it was you were talking about.
We're talking about writing voice here.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I found this fascinating article, and probably the most useful description I've ever heard of voice. But what the author had to say was, the question on the table is, how can I write to my customer in a deep and meaningful way? And in our case, it's for the purpose of selling. And it's actually selling and buying from me and not that other guy. And the only way you can do that is bond them to the sound of your voice. And there's some things you can do that are technical, like you can metaphors and strong verbs and pacing and a few things. But what it really boils down to, especially when you're working across different mediums, VSLs and emails and sales letters and in person and your FAQ and all the different ways, it's 2 things. It's deep knowledge, which is, do you know this topic in your bones?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I built these slides and I spent 12 hours on them and I'm proud of them. But what's happening right now is that mostly I'm just talking about them, because it's inside me now, and it's a filter that I use to see the whole world through. So if you bump into me on the street corner and I go on about this topic, which I probably do, sorry about that, but it's in my bones and I can't help but express it. And so that's part of what gives me the voice of it. And the other piece is vulnerability. And that can sometimes mean deep secrets, but most of the time what it means is, what's your stake in this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing this for several reasons, but one of them has to do with my grandpa. And he's a World War II vet, and he's 94. And last week, some of you who are on my email list know that I went out to Boise to celebrate his birthday with him, partially because Rockstar 94, and partially because he's dying of liver cancer.
Mm.
And I sat with him all week, and I had my rocking chair and he had his, and he told me the stories, and it's all the same stories. And then this one time he told me a story I'd never heard about his dad. And it broke my heart, because it means it was a secret, and it was dark, and it meant that in my lifetime he'd never had the courage to say that. And so he started telling me what his real stake was in this. And he's got a Garrison Keillor kind of way. He's from the Midwest. And you start to hear that vulnerability from a strong man who fought for his country and has always been, he was part of the team that built the telephone poles that we just take for granted. And it's just crazy how deeply he's in this particular topic. And that's what gives it voice. And so developing your own voice and being willing to know your topic in your bones, and be transparent enough to say, look, this is my stake in it, and I'm unwilling to walk away from that, is what's going to give you that deeply connected communication. And if you're trying to nurture a list, that's a critical thing for you. Yeah,
great point. Great point. And, just as a side note, that's what we talk about when we say about immersive learning, that even if you just go the step beyond hearing this information and take some action with it, it then becomes a part of you because you put in effort. If you then take that effort and post it up for feedback or review, and ingest other people's opinions on it and decides which you agree with and which you don't, then that makes it more immersive. And then you take it and then you reshape it and then you put it out again and you test it. Then, it really becomes a part of you if you take those efforts for any particular piece of copy or an offer or even a survey result. It becomes part of you. You'll notice when you're learning something, all of a sudden you're able to cite your ideas about it or facts about it off the top of your head to somebody, and you're like, wow, I actually know more about this than I thought I did. That's when it's become a part of you. And so that is the missing element in good marketing versus crap marketing, is that the people who put out crap marketing all the time are running at 100 miles an hour. They're just grabbing everything and they're throwing it out to see what sticks, and it's all data, and none of it feels like anything real. Compared to people who are clearly living their passion, expressing their passion, putting passion into the things they create. You can feel it in every element of how they communicate, what they present, and that is the difference. And I think that's what Melanie's talking about here, is gaining deep knowledge into your particular topic. It really makes all the difference, whether you're a freelancer. And that's why as freelancers, we want to work with people who have that passion, so that they can transfer that passion onto us, and then we can transfer that enthusiasm onto the prospect, right? Salesmanship is transferred enthusiasm, and it all starts with the product creator.
Absolutely. And there you'll feel some things, like there's this word that kind of triggers me, and it's disingenuous. Okay, so it really upsets me. It's like the giant flare. But anyways, because I feel deeply that it's important to be genuine, and that I want to be a genuine person in the world. It's my hope that if you ever run across me on a street corner, you're like, wow, standing next to that woman was the real deal. And so I want that for everybody I teach as well. And there's always the technique, and then there's the thing behind the technique. So if you get an email and someone has shortened their words, or they say cuz instead of because, and you can just feel it's not really them.
Yeah. Forced slang.
Right. And then there are other times, like I have always written in a very professional manner, and I'm starting to write more casually now because in my real life, the person who taught me to tell stories is my grandpa, and he's from the Midwest, and he has a very limited education. And my grandma taught me as well. She only had an 8th grade education. And one of her very best friends was in the mafia. And I remember her telling me she worked in a cleaners. And so every week, this bad guy would come in, and he had great big, she would say he's a great big man. And he called me Frankie. And I was just a little bit of a thing. And he would lift me up and put me up on the counter, and he would say my name, and he would tell me jokes. And he always carried his gun right there in the front pocket of that bed. And do you know, they shot that nice man. And that's just how she talked. And so as I'm becoming more confident in my own voice, I'm learning to talk the same way, because that's what's real for me, and people pick up on that.
Great.
All right, so that takes us to these 3. Like, still stuck in my head, and they shot that nice man. Oh my gosh, what was his name? Okay, the name will come to me. I Googled him, but he doesn't come up in any official reports anywhere, which means he probably wasn't as big a deal as she thought, but he was dangerous. Like, people disappeared. It was the Depression, bad stuff happened. And so anyways, the 3 complications. So that takes us to, this is also why it's so hard to write a good sales message. Look, we're not our market. Men and women think differently. Finding your voice is hard. And taken together, this means we miss the mark more often than we hit it. And that's a sobering reality. But of course, conversions show us that, right? You know, a 1% conversion is nothing to sneeze at, but we can do better.
Excellent.
And that is all the background that is created the teeming soup mixture that my system comes out of. Now, okay, so now here we are, and we're looking at fMRI scans that are modern, which is pretty cool. And it shows us that when women are making decisions, 3 safety areas must light up before their brains will get excited about an idea. And there is no negotiating this. It's just true. It has to be, they're going to ask themselves, mostly subconsciously, by the way, because gosh, we're busy people and we're doing 1,000 things at once. And so we're taking in information as fast as we can, and we're saying, is this appropriate? Is this right for me? How do I feel in this? Do I belong here? Do I feel uncomfortable with this? And also scanning for danger. What the heck is going on? As I'm driving down the road, there's that guy who took a left when he shouldn't have. There's like it gets serious around here. I've got babies in the back, and we are looking at all these things all the time. But our primary concern is this safe? And if that check mark isn't there, we're ignoring you. We are deeply, deeply committed to ignoring you. We are not changing our minds on that. So there's 5 decision power principles, and they are: all of our brains have all the same parts, and they're organized differently. So how a woman will process information is different than how a man will process information. And that's a noble, repeatable phenomenon. It's totally fine. And how you navigate that determines your success with any of your campaigns. For women, safety is an absolute requirement. And if you try to ramp up the excitement and ignore the safety piece, she's going to give you a dirty look and walk away, like non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Deep ignoring. And now men, on the other hand, if you can make something exciting enough, they'll ignore safety. I think probably they might like it fine, but it's not a super essential requirement for getting things done in life. So the important thing to remember here is if you reinforce the safety as you're increasing the excitement, you're going to catch more people all the time. So it's right. This is a sexist conversation, right? Male versus female. Like in this modern age, what am I even doing? How dare I even talk like this?
Yeah.
Especially since I have college-age kids, and they're talking about all the different identities and how people present and what goes on with people. And so it's a bold-faced thing for me to do that says men and women are different because we work so hard to be equal.
Right.
But we are absolutely equal and different. All the same parts to organize differently. And how we process that matters. And
as a side note, this topic on its own, it will move the needle on your writing and your offers. And if you look at Melanie's article on Copy Chief, the safety excitement scale article, and the podcast around that, there's a lot of great information in there as well.
Right. So where you'll see this play out. All these ideas are layered, and my hope for you is that at the end you get this moment where like, oh my gosh, that made total sense. One of the things about hanging out with me is that you get a feel that what I'm doing is right, but sometimes you don't see it until it all clicks together. And then you're like, oh, I see. So that's kind of where we're going here. But yes, in the article, what you're going to see is that there are 3 safety elements and there are 6 excitement elements. And if you think of it as moving around a racetrack and you just keep hitting all of those different pieces, you're going to have better success. And it's an easy thing to balance once you kind of get that visual in your mind.
Excellent.
So in an ideal world, we have this thing called the dream sale. And that's where your buyers feel excited and safe and like you really get them. I remember when I was teaching 9th grade algebra, my students would raise their hand and I would think, okay, that's good. We got that part managed. And the next thing that would happen is a chorus of them would yell, I don't get it. And this drove me bananas because what was there to get? There's the formula. We're solving for X. We're going to do it 1,000 times. And what I figured out is that I had more IEPs, individual education plans, in my group of students than any other teacher in the whole school. I worked for a really poor school district and I didn't have my own classroom. I had to move from room to room. And this one room, they didn't even have a proper chair for the teacher. She was elderly and overweight and bad knees and the whole thing. Her chair, the seat had disintegrated and somebody bought duct tape and wove her a little seat. So I was up against it. I did not have access to teaching tools. We were actually teaching from the same books that I learned from when I was in high school, which was kind of crazy. Yeah, it was nuts. And so I started teaching X marks the spot as though it was a treasure map. Nobody had ever taught these students, we read formulas from left to right as though you were reading a book you enjoy. They were just looking at them straight on and going, oh my God, there's all these numbers. I don't know what to do. What's this X? What's this Y? Like nobody told them, slow down, take a breath. The X is the treasure. You can't see it right now, but it's definitely there. It exists. You can find it. I can give you some tools to help you look for it. You're going to be okay. And nobody told them. And that just blew my mind. So that's what they were really saying was, I want to be able to see this whole picture all at once, but I don't have enough tools to even know what I'm looking at.
Right, right.
And then the second piece is, and you as the writer feel like all your copy is emotionally rock solid and that it's strategically positioned to close more sales with the best customers. Because of course I wanted all my students to feel strong and safe and capable, but if it's not moving them towards getting a passing grade or an A grade, or in some cases telling the student, look, you're just too strong for this class, I want you to move up to the next class, then what is my purpose really here as a teacher? This is not a treadmill. This is an opportunity for you to take your skills, apply them to your offer, and then move on to doing greater things.
Excellent.
Now that takes us over here to the 9 buyer types, which I saw you guys in the chat when the last webinar didn't go, and I saw you making jokes about the different types. And that made me feel really good because I realized you guys actually read my report and I didn't know that would happen, right? Because I think my thoughts and I come up with these ideas and I teach them the best of my ability. But the idea that you guys put in effort to download it, read it, think about it, and then tell me jokes about it was really affirming. So for everybody that did that, thank you.
Well, so, fortunately for us, your thoughts belong to the world now. Melanie.
Oh my goodness. It's
We're here to claim them, girl.
That's right. Take them, use them, shred them, bring them back and be like, that one didn't work. Let's try a new one. It's no problem. X marks the spots is a thing. It's going to be fine. So this will show you how to write to people you're never going to meet and still be able to influence them as easily if you were chatting over coffee, because the secret is it's way easier to influence somebody in person, but we all picked this complicated online thing, but there's no reason we can't be amazing at it. So that's what's going to happen. Now, because there's a ton of information in the report and because it didn't all fit on a single slide, I made you guys a meta slide. And my son would be super proud of that because he's a science geek and he digs all things meta. So on every slide, what you're going to see is a way to spot each buyer type so that you don't have to give them a personality test, because if anybody's ever taken the MBTI test and then realized it's useful for you but lousy for other people, because like, hey, my name's Melanie, can you take this test before we have a conversation? Like, that's not going to work. That's just dumb. So I'll give you a super easy way to spot the buying type. And then I'm going to tell you what they're really asking, which is their hidden question. And then I'm going to give you 2 ways to answer that hidden question. One is logical and one is emotional. And you're going to see a lot of things that you read from classic salesmanship, and that is excellent because it's going to show you where you are on the map and how all of this is, while we can see it now on the brain scans, it's also being grounded in observation that goes to the beginning of sales and to the beginning of simple human psychology, with thousands of years of very smart people watching other smart people and going, hey, you know what I noticed? A pattern.
Yeah.
The Respect Me Buyer is number one. And the tool that I chose to use is objections as our little how to spot the buyer tool, because people like to complain. So they're just going to show up with their complaints all the time, and we may as well use them to our advantage. Now, some people think, well, this doesn't make a ton of sense because the objections come at the end. We put our fact at the end to handle objections and then close the sale. But for the buyer, the objection is the first thing. They wouldn't be here reading your sales letter if they didn't have an objection to something else going on in their lives. Now, we call that a problem, but they don't. They just complain. And so when you're looking at, for your own products, the best way to do it is to look at your own data and say, these are the objections that I'm getting. But if you don't have that, you can look at objections from similar products and even do stuff like read the Amazon reviews. That's a classic and super useful way to find out what people think. Imagine a person who is so happy or so annoyed and has so little else to do with their lives that they go to Amazon, click a button, and then type their words.
Yeah.
I'm saying this person doesn't have enough other people to complain to. They needed the whole universe to know this thing. So I'm saying it's emotionally charged and that we can use that information as good data. So an objection here might be, well, I need a new X to make this work. Or are there any hidden costs? So what they're actually asking is this right for me? Does this fit into the way I'm living my world right now? So logically, I want you to talk about the implications of moving forward, and I want you to talk about the risk of doing nothing. Give straightforward reasons for everything. There's just no reason to be using flashy words here. A lot of my writing now is coming in at somewhere between grade 2 and grade 4, because my desire is that it will go from screen to brain without skipping a beat. I don't want anybody to feel like they had to take a deep breath and settle into their chair, maybe get some water. Nobody needs to study these sales letters. They need to go from screen to brain decision, just like that. Screen, brain, decision, go.
Boy, that's such an important note. I talk all the time about one concept per sentence, right? And it's just so critical, especially with VSLs. Most of us are writing not just sales pages now, but VSL scripts, and you have to make sure that your viewer's brain can keep up with each slide without getting hung up wondering if it understands what you said, if it really understands that word, if it understands that concept, and not using concepts that could be taken very different ways between you and between them and someone else in a different room somewhere. It's all got to be crystal clear. As Michael Fishman says, it's not our job to write in a way that people will understand. It's our job to write in a way that there's absolutely no way in the world that they couldn't understand. Right.
And one important way to do that is, that feels a little overwhelming. The whole world, how can I be certain that they're not misunderstanding me? And it's pretty common for people to misunderstand me. So that's a thing that happens. And so what you can do is, I've got this idea that says, the more specific something is, the more universal it is. And it's got a companion idea that says, the more I think my thing is about me, the more unique I think I am, the more universal I am. And it's something of a paradox. But whenever I think, oh, I am the only person this thing has ever happened to, surely this is the most important struggle in the whole world, I can be certain that there are millions of other people out there thinking the exact same thing. And so if you ever get disoriented and saying, is there any way a person could misunderstand what I'm saying right here? The answer is yes. And then just start looking for ways, like get crazy with it. How could they possibly take this wrong?
Yeah.
And then look at that and then just try again.
That's a fun exercise. I like that.
Yeah. So emotionally, to this person now, this is actually really interesting. When I was putting together this material, I worried because this idea of logic and respect and implications, it's just so logical, and logic has nothing to do with emotion. But that's not true, because the reality is, for this person, logic is an emotion, and orderly is a feeling. There's a rightness, there's a richness, there's a groundedness to this sensation of logic and step by step. And so when you give this person enough concrete information, you can be certain you are giving that sensation of groundedness and order. And so you are connecting with them emotionally. So there's no need to worry about ramping it up. In this case, bringing it down might be the right way.
Excellent. Wow, man, that was that's number one, folks. You just got such a handful on number one. Oh man, this is definitely a training you're going to want to go through a couple of times. It's just so rich. I love it. And so great. So you have an example for us for the Respect Me Buyer.
I do. Now, because I was worried that logic might not be a feeling, I decided to prove it.
All right.
This is my art teacher, and I believe that she is my art teacher, even though I have never met her. I am deeply bonded to her, even though she lives in Australia, and I will never get to visit her at what she calls her nest. And I love her because she wears those sassy glasses and she uses all the colors. Now, when you look at her business, though, it could be a support me business because she nurtures these women who want to, and men too, who want to become freer artists. And a lot of them have never drawn a thing in their lives, maybe a stick figure. Mm-hmm. But it could also be a teach me business, right? Because she teaches online classes. Of course, she's teaching something. It could be an empower me business because, wow, how do you feel once you've managed to make that first scribble on the page and it doesn't suck? That's great. But what it actually is a respect me business. And now this is her homepage. And it's got all these beautiful colors and it's free and fun and light. And so it's easy to get it confused. But right here it says, discover which workshop is right for you. And it's got a little infographic. It says, start here. Do you ever say to yourself, I can't draw? If yes, then you need to click right here and start with the Draw Happy course, which I've taken and is fantastic. Or if you say no, you can scroll down, which I don't have here because of the screenshot, but it will say, okay, well, would you like to have more creativity in your drawing? Yes, no. Okay, well then this class. Well, would you like to have more ability to draw figures? She teaches this unusual way. It's very specific to her. It's very simple, knowable, repeatable. It's all the things. It's useful. How to draw figures because she comes out of the fashion drawing world. Would you like that? Yes, no. And she takes you through this very logical process to do this very creative thing. And it's very respectful because when you're learning art, it's very scary and you feel like maybe people won't respect your work or your desires. And so that was the hidden question beyond all those people. And that's what sets her business apart.
Now, I just love this so much. And it's such a perfect example, Melanie, because I'm sure everybody's having the same experience I did. When you showed me this page and you kind of walked me through this, I just immediately started thinking of my own business and my own offers and going, this is exactly what I need. It's such a beautiful way to simplify it right there in the infographic. Do you say these? Do you say this? Yes or no? And right there, it's like, okay, great. And you this group enter this door. The rest of you follow Larry there, and he's going to take you to the next building. I mean, it's just, it couldn't be simpler. And especially, even if you don't have a suite of products that might fit, more advanced avatars than others, think about the information that you're creating and putting out there and think, are there levels to the information that I produce, even in blog? Somebody had, I think it's Digital Marketer, I forget the name of it, maybe somebody help me in the comments, but they have that scale, that circle of expertise or knowledge that allows you, make sure, are you writing to advanced people as well as beginners? Are you including everybody? Like, how often are you doing each, right? So this can apply even if you're still in like content creation mode and don't have an offer yet. This is absolutely important to think about. What is the journey of your reader? Remember that the most important, the most valuable thing somebody can pay us up front is attention. And what we do with that attention makes or breaks our business. Absolutely, 100%. And so think about it this way. This is a beautiful example and such an important point, Melanie. It's just, I can't believe we're only on the first buyer type.
That word attention just really resonated with me. And I know we hear it a lot. It's in the AIDA formula: attention, interest, desire, action. But really, what makes something attention grabbing? This woman, for me, is absolutely captivating. But that happened because I already was interested in drawing. I already was worried that I was no good at it. I already had a secret desire to be great at it. And I had it in my head that I could do this with colored pencils that were not normal skin tones. I wanted to put purple on my little child's face. And I had no idea that that was possible. It was just a weird thing that was in my head. So when I started looking for an online class, I was going to find somebody who used all the colors. And it turns out there's only one, and her name is Jane, and she's fantastic. But it's an excellent example of the conversation in your customer's head, because if I was looking for a black and white class, or if I was looking for a class that was only flesh tones, or any of 1,000 other things, I would not have chosen her. So she didn't go in and say, gosh, well, if you would like to do more colors or less colors, I will be the whole universe for you. She said, no, I do this thing. And if you want it, here is a roadmap for you to figure out how to enter my world.
Excellent.
All righty. Number 2, the love me buyer. So the common objections here might be, you don't understand my problem. How do I know you're qualified? And I don't believe you. And these are some hard things to hear. And at first, because it's a strong pushback. And because of that, you might think, oh, this person doesn't want to be loved. This person wants to spit on the ground and walk away. But what's actually behind all of this is a desire to know, do you appreciate me? And if you're willing to move forward and say, actually, I really appreciate you. And if that's coming from an honest place for you, first of all, if you're in business, please let that be coming from an honest place.
Yeah.
If you do not appreciate your customers, it's maybe time to get a different market. And that's just true. But if you're willing to say, look, in the face of this objection, I am going to take a stand and say, I appreciate you, even though you're currently objecting. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can give concrete reasons why she can trust you. And a lot of times this is visual, security badges, stories, videos, even website colors that can all go a long way. And emotionally speaking, help this person feel loved, helpful, and appreciated for what she does. The actions that she takes are important to her. And I went back and forth on gender. Some of the slides say he and some of the slides say she. So I don't mean anything specific by that gender-wise. But the people in this group take action and they step forward and they take risks. And if you're willing to say, I acknowledge that you're doing this and I appreciate you for that, that will go a long way.
Awesome.
The next one, I don't have examples for every single one of them because I could be here all day showing you all my favorite businesses, but I did some spot checks to break it up. So we're going to move through a couple more. And when we get over to number 4, I do have another example. So watch out for that. Great. Now this one says, I don't need it right now. And also, how long will it take to work? Which is a really funny combination of objections, because if you really didn't need it right now, why would you care how long it's going to take to work?
Yeah, right.
And so you know that's not the real no buying reason. If they ever get to this point, this is not a no-go, this is a stall. And the hidden question here is, will others see me as a success? Now, in some ways, you could be like, wow, that person, like, only concerned with what other people think about them. But the other way to look at them is, this is most often an ideal client because they're hard workers and they want to succeed. And they want other people to see them succeeding, which means they're great for you on social media, because if something's going well for them and you were the reason it went well, they're going to tell all their friends. So there's a lot to be said for celebrating your buyers. Logically, you can talk about timing. How long does each step take? And how long until you get the ultimate result? And how much time is this going to take away from my real life and other commitments? Because these people are overburdened, they're moving fast, sometimes they skip steps, and that's probably why they have the problem in the first place. So it's stepwise. Does step 1 take 5 minutes or 3 hours? How long is it going to take me to get the results? Am I going to lose these 30 pounds in X number of months, in X number of weeks? What's the wedding is happening, I'm wearing that dress, how long until I can be in the photograph? That's what we need to know here.
Right.
And emotionally speaking, I want you to notice and admire this person for doing things well. Try to avoid rejecting the person or their ideas, especially since a lot of times for this person, they get who they are confused with what they do. Who they are and what their ideas are often linked. Mm-hmm. So if you ever accidentally say to this person, wow, your headline could use some work, like maybe you were consulting with another copywriter inside Copy Chief and offering some feedback. This happens, by the way. Always affirm everything that's worth affirming, especially if it's a multiple of the number of negative feedback you get, because that negative stuff is going to feel bigger than the positive stuff. So anchor the good as best you can, and then say, yes, and. Like, I see that there's a strong headline here. That's a yes. And a way you can do to improve it is, and then go ahead and add in the feedback. Always celebrate first and then add any other feedback afterwards.
Great.
Okay, here we are at number 4. Okay, number 4 says the support me buyer. The common objections you're going to hear are, I got burned by X before, or X is a scam and it will only cause damage. So what we know here is this person tries, right? Because something happened and they got burnt before. This person wants to succeed at this thing because they keep going back to that same spot, trying again. And there's some built up yuck there. And who wants to live with that kind of a burden? But what they're really asking is, do I belong here? And logically, you can talk about bad experiences. It's just best to acknowledge that stuff happens. And then maybe they'll consider moving forward. But the reality is the problem exists. There is a solution and bad stuff has happened. So it is totally okay to say that, so that they can set that down and then move on if they want to move on. If they actually don't want to move on, then they're going to click away from you, and this very, very short relationship that you guys have had is over. It's no harm, no foul. But for you to be dancing around it isn't fair to anybody. Emotionally speaking, this buyer holds superior standards and with contempt for lesser standards. And I wish there was a simpler way to say that, but they hold themselves to a very high standard and they enjoy disliking the lower standard. So when you say, my product is the best, and here's some reasons it's better than the rest, that is a double win. So it's okay to say both.
Are you guys getting this, where people keep popping up in my head? This is what I love about this. As you talk through them, you know, certain people, and I guess I might have a small advantage because, you know, I run a community here where I get to know my members intimately, but for every one of these, just these faces are popping up in my mind as you describe them, and I see them so clearly. You know, it's one of the, I guess, an advantage of being in a community, any community, is in getting to know some of the other people. You hear their objections, or you hear the patterns of things they point out all the time. Like you're talking about, how long will this take? Or they're really detail oriented about it, right? Or talking about constantly how they got burned by something else and reporting scams. Oh, it's just brilliant. It's so clear.
Yeah, it's fun because we're creatures of habit, and we tend to go to our home base, and you can even see a person, you can get flipped out. I was talking to somebody recently, and he just went someplace that was not his home base. I'm like, well, what changed? Like, what about this moment changed? And do you want to go back to whatever? Do you need a cup of coffee or like a glass of wine, or like, what's going on, man? And it's fun to watch people move around, because the reality is we're all over the map all the time. It's just a function of being human. But when you talk about ideal clients and ideal customers, it's interesting because you tend to go back to that demographic and psychographics, because a lot of times we don't have anything else, and it can seem risky to be talking about how we feel about things. But there's the hidden truth. We're only making decisions emotionally. We love to think that we're more sophisticated and more evolved than that, but the reality is we're emotional creatures. We do our best. And so having a framework like this gives me in particular a way to chill out, because I see that other person, they're just moving around, they're spinning or looping or doing what they do, and in a little while everything's going to be fine. And when my messages go out in a way that makes sense to me and to them, I'm going to have a better chance of connecting. And that's really all this is about.
Excellent.
So this person, one thing you can do is help confirm their suspicions. You understand that stuff happened, that's just part of the way. And when you are willing to confirm her suspicions, it's just so affirming. You feel like a real person. Like, I noticed that thing, and that person shows up to you and says, yeah, I noticed that thing too. And that's it. Now you're leading and she'll follow. And there we are. Next example.
Yay.
I am particularly fond of this company. I spent a lot of time hanging out here. And this is Coffee Chief. And that's my buddy, Bruce. So when I was in Boise, he sent me a note and said, okay, we're going to my pal's restaurant. We're having Mexican food. And I didn't tell him that I was wearing the shirt, and he didn't tell me. And the whole thing just worked, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah. And I liked it for a lot of reasons. I think we might have been the only 2 Coffee Chief in all of Idaho.
We're working to change that.
Right? Certainly we were the only ones wearing the t-shirt. And I actually keep that t-shirt on my dresser because I work alone. I'm in my house all day long, me, my laptop, my big ideas. I type whatever, I send them out. I hope they land. I get feedback, and we're all doing it. But some days it's really lonely. And so I keep that t-shirt out because it says nobody writes alone. And I hear you in my head go, yo, you're not alone. I'm like, yeah, I'm alone. He's like, no, you're not alone. I'm like, yeah, I feel alone. Melanie, you're not alone. I'm like, oh, that's right, I'm not alone. And so it's this ongoing message of support and affirmation. And so that's one of my favorite things about coffee.
Beautiful. That's a great example.
Yeah, isn't it?
I approve.
Great. Okay, so this is a Teach Me Buyer. Now this one, a lot of people might think, wow, my business definitely falls into this one because I teach stuff online. Duh, I don't need to pay any attention to any of the other buyers. And that's not exactly true. So yes, we present our material in a teaching format because that's just useful, but not all people like to buy that way. So this is a buying psychology moment, which means it's about how the buyer thinks, which is different than how the seller thinks, which is so frustrating to me because there's just not enough books in the marketplace about this. There's a zillion books on how to sell. There's very few books on how to buy. So a common objection here might be, isn't X better or faster or offering more return than your solution? And it feels a little confrontational. My son is this way. And what he's actually asking is, do I understand everything correctly? So this person's not trying to attack you, although it can feel that way. They just want to make sure they have enough information to make a solid decision. And boy, do they ever pay attention. They're really listening to everything you're saying. Even though it looks like they're there to pick a fight, or sometimes they'll say, well, I just like to argue. It's not true. They'll keep it up because they need this understanding sensation.
What do I have this face clear in my head right now?
Do you know somebody like this?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So logically, I want you to talk about value, which you might not notice right away because why would understanding and value be linked? But if you look at the objection, it's saying, is it better? Is it faster? Does it offer more return? What about this makes it valuable? I don't understand. So use simple logical language, use numbers, use facts, and this is another one of those times when the facts are the emotion, the logic is the emotion. So value is an obsession for this person. It helps him understand how he fits into the outside world. It's a roadmap, and it gives that person some security and solid footing. If I'm going to take a next step with you, I need to find out that when I put my foot down and put my weight on it, it's not going to be quicksand.
Great.
The next one, the Reassure Me Buyer. And their objections are going to be, I can't afford it. Do I really need it? And it won't work for me. Again, what is this even about? Like, why would you say I can't afford it and then immediately say, do I really need this? Because if you actually need it, you will find a way to afford it. And that's something of a cliche in sales, but really, do you need it? Because so last week when I got off the plane, my arm wasn't working. I had somehow pinched a nerve in flight, and my arm was completely numb. I couldn't lift a book. I couldn't lift a fork to feed myself. I couldn't pick up my own luggage or use the zipper.
Wow.
And it was really strange. I remember looking at my arm thinking, that's weird. I don't remember falling asleep on my arm and I can't feel my arm. And I type for a living. This is kind of a problem. And it was a day and a half before I finally went to the emergency room. And only because some people got involved and said, you do know that ongoing nerve damage is a thing, right? You can't let this keep happening. But I really did ask myself, do I need this? Do I need to go to the emergency room right now? It's Saturday night. Can I afford the copay? Of course I can afford the copay. You just get a little weird in there. Somebody needed to reassure me that this was going to be a safe decision for me.
Great example. Yeah.
And the arm's fine. But it might not have been fine.
I knew that. I should have asked. Should have been chivalrous. I knew it was okay already, but yes.
Just in case somebody hasn't heard the story. It's okay, nobody dies.
It was a scary story. And that is how things happen. It's like we ignore them and we think, it'll shake it off. It'll be all right. And those are the moments sometimes. So take heed. Yeah.
So if you're a person, first of all, be brave enough to say what's going on with you, because people can't help if they don't know.
Yeah.
And then have the good sense to act on good advice. If it's stinky advice, don't act on it, walk away. But if it's good advice, if you keep hearing it in your head, maybe take action. So that's a little life lesson for you. So logically, talk about cost versus need. And this is interesting because it's not want versus need. What is this going to cost me in money? What is this going to cost me in risk in terms of relationship and time and how I see myself? And what's more dangerous, making a change or staying the same? And make sure to show both. What's this going to cost me? And what's the real need here? What's really at stake? And emotionally, help her feel like she belongs and won't be abandoned. Talk about the friendly, safe community that's waiting here for her. This is about not wanting to feel self-conscious. I don't want to go to the hospital and have that random doctor guy that I don't know poking at my arm and making fun of me because maybe I just slept on it or maybe I'm exaggerating. I'm like, it starts looping in here pretty fast.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to tell this person, we have a structure, everything is okay, you're going to be fine, you are completely safe. All right, this takes us over to the Entertain Me Buyer. Now this is my friend Kim, and she is one of my favorite people in the whole world. But one of her objections will be, I don't know if I have the authority to buy this. This is why in the olden days when they wanted to come to your house to sell you new carpet or new windows, they wanted to make sure that your spouse was there so you could make a decision on the spot. Okay. And then they'll also say, what exactly is in this program? And this is a trap. This is one of the ones that has a hidden trap in it. The question is actually, is this going to be fun? Do I need to be worrying about maintaining the boundaries, or do you have this? And this roller coaster ride, do you maintain the roller coaster, or the brakes work? I do not want to worry about any of this. All right, so they will ask you for specific details. How many MP3s are there? What's in them? Well, how many pages are the worksheet? Well, what exactly am I going to get on this? They actually could not care less. They're only checking to find out if you know what you're doing. So it's important to give them the answers they need, but don't go overboard. This buyer wants to have that easy breezy feeling. He hates feeling deprived. So anytime you can say, relax, enjoy, and we've got you covered, if it's true, because they'll know if you're lying. So if you do have all the bases covered, tell them. And then that's enough to solve that question.
Excellent.
Empower Me Buyer. Their objections will be, how do I start using the product? What happens if I don't like it? Can I return it? What if I have questions or need help? And this all feels very pragmatic, and it feels like elementary school. You'll get those notes home from the school. They're like, here's step one, here's step two, here's step three. This person needs to know that they are in control of what happens next. They're not trying to usurp control. They're not trying to tell you how to run your business. They only want to know, do I have the things that I need so that I can get things done in my life? They're independent, and they like it that way. So answer the logistical questions. You're going to see this in facts a lot. Empower them. They like it. Keep it simple. Be complete. Don't leave stuff out. And this goes back to the misunderstanding piece. Look over your fact answers and say, what have I left out? What can be misunderstood? Where have I gone off the rails? And you'll see the gaps.
Yep.
Emotionally speaking, put this buyer in control. Respect the fact that she's different, she's independent, and she's decisive. This person drives her own life. If you give her the tools, she will follow you because you gave her independence.
Wow, great point.
Look who. Now, if this isn't an Empower Me business, I have no idea what is. So this is Wardy's Traditional Cooking School. This is maybe a Teach Me business because there's all these amazing training videos, and you can learn all kinds of cool stuff like how to ferment foods and sourdough, how to make sourdough bread, and how to cook with ancient grains. There is just no end of interesting things you can learn to do from this website and from this great person. But what it actually is a business that says, I'm going to give you the ability to feed your family in a way that makes sense for you. It's going to resonate with your ideas about how the world should be. It's going to resonate with what you want to give your children for a legacy. It's going to resonate with you in terms of how you bring forward traditions so that you can be connected to the past, present, and future. And if you want to live your life off the grid, I'm going to give you the power to do that. You will always have these core skills and the ability to live the sort of life that you and your partner have always dreamed of. And that's going to be expressed on the dinner table every night.
Wow.
Yeah, that's some powerful stuff.
Yeah, what a way to think of it. And no wonder you've done such an amazing job teaming with Wardy to resonate with her audience. I mean, it would be, it'd be so easy to stop at Teach Me Buyer, like you said, but the way you described it, it's absolutely in power. And when you know that, it'll be really interesting to see the follow-up, because if we know Wardy, we know she implements.
Yeah.
And it's already there, obviously, because you guys created it together. But as a follow-up, I already want to have a conversation with Wardy about how she sees this, right? And feedback and comments. But just going to Wardy's Facebook page and seeing the conversation that goes on there, I bet you see tons of examples of this there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really fun to watch her business grow. And gosh, it's just so charming. You want this to work, and you want to be a part of it. And there's this great back room too, where the people come into her forum and they visit and they support one another, and everybody empowers everybody else. There's no question that isn't taken very seriously. I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful place. I'm really proud to be associated with it.
Awesome. Yeah. Wardy said that she's been mulling it since hearing you say it on the podcast. So beautiful. And again, no doubt that will result in very interesting research for us all. So awesome. Thank you, Wardy. Wow, number 9. Here we are. I don't let it end. I feel like I'm watching a great movie, and I feel like the end is near, and I'm like depressed. Okay, here we go.
Oh, that's all right. We'll still be together. There'll be sequels. Number 9 is the Invite Me Buyer, and their objections will be, I don't want to rock the boat at home, and what will I tell my spouse about buying this product? And this one's actually linked to the empowerment. That's a common objection you have with women, particularly if they're mothers, because rocking the boat at home can matter. I'm going to change the entire way our family eats, and it's going to be great. Well, I mean, you could get some pushback there. And so the hidden question is, am I welcome here along with my whole life and all of my people? I'm not just bringing myself. Oh, no, I'm bringing everybody. The crazy in-laws, that kid that won't eat anything except ketchup. Like we're happening right now. Are you sure you want me? If you don't want me, tell me now. So logically, give this person the words to explain the decision to the important people in their lives, word for word, if you need to. Because when they get emotionally wrapped up in this, you'll hear the spinning, like, oh my gosh, but this person, what am I going to say? Just give them the words. They can use them or not. Both choices are totally acceptable, but give them the tools and the words so that they can express themselves. Emotionally, this person's interesting because they believe that waiting improves the quality of the decision. Well, now we're in sales and we like fast. We give quick start bonuses, we put timers on things. And so you might think, oh, okay, well, I'm just plain old never selling to this customer. They're not for me. But they're also loyal, and loyal matters. So what you can do is both. You can move the person along by setting limits on the bonuses and saying with your words, the ball is in your court. So you can make this decision anytime you want to. Today, tomorrow, never. That's entirely on you. But if this is right for you, and if you want to move forward today, then here's a set of bonuses. Or the price is different. Or there's something about now that makes now more appealing than not now. But you always have the ability to come back here. When you come back here next week, it's going to be full price, and I will gladly take your money then and sell you the product then. It will still be amazing. But now's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
That is so great. Okay, great. Oh, we have an example for number 9.
We do. And this is my friend Jen, and she is an energy healer. So this one can be interesting because it's kind of a woo-woo topic, and it's a mindset thing. And it can be tricky to find a business to use as an example that leads with this invite me, please bring your whole life message. But she helps people who work in MLMs, and there's a big concept of teamwork in MLM. And there's an upline, there's a downline, and people get on your calls and they help you close sales. And so you are only ever as strong as your team. You're only ever as strong as your support system at home. You're only ever as strong as the suite of products that you're linked in to sell. And so her leading message is, come on in, bring your whole team, bring your family, bring whatever else is going on in your mind. And I'm going to help you work through the mindset pieces so that you can grow your business. And it has a very concrete outcome, because once you've got this specific kind of team mindset moving, then you're going to see an increase in sales, and that means an increase in your pocketbook. And it's a lot of times this is a woman-driven business. And so this means I was able to trade in my 10-year-old minivan for a new one. This means I was able to buy better food for my children. This means I was able to show my spouse that taking the time away from this to do that made the difference. And so there's a very big, important message of please come and please bring your whole life and all of your people with you.
Fantastic. I just want to remind everybody, we have some great comments here. Jeremy nailed this, that this reminded him of network marketing. So it's great that that's the example. And everybody get your questions ready. If you in the chat, you'll see to the left, you see the little quote, and you can click on that. And then there's an option there to make it a question. If you have a specific question, we've got a little bit more before we get to Q&A. I just want to get you guys ready to start putting your questions in so we can dive right into those.
So that takes us through the 9 types. And what I want to give you now is a way to look at it and remember it in your mind's eye, because 9 is a lot. But this will give you the safety excitement scale, which is the same information, but just in a different visual format. So imagine a balanced scale with safety on one side and excitement on the other. And it's another way to think about that train track. We're going to move around and around multiple times, 3 on one side and 6 on the other. And here is what they are in a list format for anybody who happens to prefer that. On the safety side, what we have is appropriate. Is this right for me? If you think about it in terms of brakes on a car, this is a set of external brakes. And if this is if this world is not right for me, if it's not fitting into how I'm moving through the world, and I'm not doing it. And the next one is self-aware. Do I belong here? This one functions like internal brakes. Like it's this idea of feeling self-conscious versus feeling relaxed and settled. If this one's a no-go, if I feel awkward here, I'm out. And the third one is environment. And this one's more like hypervigilance. And this is where you're moving through your life and you've got one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake. And maybe you've got your hand on the parking brake, because you just never know when that crazy driver is going to come out from nowhere. And you will eventually get there, but it's slower, it's exhausting, it's not a good ride. So if you think about these in terms of braking systems, you can memorize this pretty quickly. And what matters here is a lot of times the answer is not adding more excitement, not pressing on the accelerator harder. A lot of times the answer is helping take the pressure off the brakes. And that's why safety is so important. Some people looking at this would say, oh my gosh, really? What you're actually telling me to do is write the world's most boring sales letters, and that's what's going to convert. I'm like, are you serious with me right now? I just spent an hour learning that. Are you sure? But no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that most people, particularly online buyers, and particularly because a lot of them are women, are going through life with a touchy braking system. And if you are aware of that, these are some tools that you can use so that they're not over triggering the brakes. And then you're constantly in the shop getting that stupid parking brake repaired. Or in my case, buying a new car. Here's that. And so on the other side, we have these are the same hidden questions you saw before. And these are places where once you have adjusted for the braking system, super important, you can start strategically adding more excitement, and you can skew this for your ideal client. So for example, in Wardy's case, I'm proposing that this is an empowerment business. And if she chooses to lead with that, then she would heavily emphasize number 5 and throw in all the others as makes sense, because of course you appreciate your empowered customers. And of course you celebrate your empowered customers, but it's not you can't lead with everything all the time. So pick something, lead with that, test, please, please, please test. And then check your feedback. And then if you need to adjust, you do.
Excellent.
Now, how to sanity check your work. Before you send out your finished copy, email, VSL, sales letters, all of it, have I created enough safety for my reader? And have I created enough excitement around my product? Safety belongs to your reader. Safety is about their personhood and their identity and how they think about themselves moving through the world. Excitement's about your product. You can't have one without the other. You might have the world's most exciting product ever. You can adore it and want to tuck it in with you and keep it warm at night. That doesn't necessarily mean your reader feels safe with that. So link safety to your reader, link excitement to your product.
Link safety to your reader, link excitement to your product. That's great.
Yes. Now, we talked about this a little earlier, but it's just up here so you can see it with words. So if you have an existing business, figure out who your primary buyer is. You know this person. They buy often. They send you love notes. They rarely annoy you. They think everything you make is great. They get results. They tell you about the results they get. Like, these people are made of magic. Okay, so think about that person. Now, what you're going to do to optimize this is start increasing the quality of your sales copy. So you're hitting the 9 elements, and you're using the safety excitement system, and you can capture their imagination no matter what mood they're in. Because interestingly enough, imagination and mood have nothing to do with one another. I can have whatever going on in my head all the time, even if I'm in a cranky mood, even if I'm in a sad mood, even if they're not linked. So what you're actually wanting is to link attention and imagination. And then mood is something that you can just work with. So look at your business's most common objections, and that's where you're going to find out your ideal customer's buyer type and their hidden question. And then that's where you're going to be able to start applying some of these things that we've talked about to improve the quality of your offer. And don't try to improve everything all at once. Pick one something and test it, see if you like it. And then from there, start to expand your reach. If you have a new business, you can identify which buyer type you are. Now, this is a good time because you know how I think I'm the most important and interesting person that's ever lived on the planet, and how everybody else thinks that too. So yeah, so then what you can do is, if you're starting a brand new business, write to people who are like you, right? People who are watching where you are right now, and they're just a few steps further behind on the path than you are. And you can say, come on in, the water's great. This is what I did. So go find your personal buyer type and confirm your hidden question. You don't need to take my word for this. I've researched this, I study it, I live it, I write about it. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to believe me. So go confirm that the question is right for you, and then start applying the hidden questions to your offer, and then start to grow from there.
Great. So that's, I mean, you know, that slide needs to be printed. I'm already picturing where I'm going to put these on my wall, by the way. You know, I want the poster of the 9, and then I want that last slide sitting.
Well, I know somebody who's a great graphic artist. I think she'd be all right with that job.
I would like that.
All right, so you right? So this is a writing exercise. So I've given you an entire buyer psychology model, which I love. I love big things, but that doesn't make them necessarily accessible. And so what I gave you was a writing exercise I call the fear triangle. And in my opinion, it's the fastest and easiest way to find your ideal buyer. If you look at this ad, it's actually a public service announcement put together by New York City. And it's a Coke bottle, and when it pours into the glass, it becomes burbling globs of fat, which is foul. And now is in my head and will not leave my head. Do not drink yourself fat. Stop, cut back on the sugar. So that's useful and terrifying. So what I want you to do is pretend you are your ideal customer and pick a topic like weight loss. Now, fill out this sentence. When I think about losing the weight, I have fear that I set a timer for 15 to 45 minutes. I like 45, but if you've only got 15, that'll do you just fine. And then keep repeating that number 3 statement until you run out of time. You will learn super interesting stuff. When I think about losing the weight, I have fear that I am going to have loose skin. When I think about losing the weight, I have fear that I will lose my spouse because he says he likes me chubby. I have no idea what that's about. When I think about losing the weight, I have fear that I will lose my mind and move to Cancun and never take care of my family. You would be amazed at what people are afraid of. And because we're all unique and that makes us all the same, you can learn a ton by just you quietly doing this exercise. I've had people call me for a 15-minute consultation and say, I'm so excited to read to you what I just wrote because I had no idea, which is interesting because they only asked themselves. So they actually did have an idea. They just didn't have a way to dig all that stuff up. And this will give you that.
How cool would it be to do like a live like drum circle or like an improv exercise where say there's like, 10 people standing there and one at a time answering, filling in that blank, right? With what they know, what they've ever felt or ever heard somebody say, and just go around like 3 or 4 times,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So when I do it, I actually get this weird kind of, my head goes to this weird space and my forehead gets all wonky. I'm like, wow, I am so deeply connected to whatever this is I'm writing right now. And you find that you drop into the writer's zone quicker when you do this as a little bit of a warm-up. It's just such a useful thing. So anybody who wants to give it a shot, I really recommend it.
In fact, I'm already thinking this needs to be an exercise for this training. Is what we're going to do is, choose what it is. So it's when I think about, and then the problem you're looking to solve, right?
Right.
I have fear that so for me, it would be when I think about writing copy, I have a fear that I blank.
Right.
For Ross, it would be when I think about coming up with my USP, I have a fear that for Wardy, it'd be when I think about learning traditional cooking methods, I have a fear that
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. It takes a little courage to do it because you have to say, I am going to acknowledge the pure humanity of this and say, yeah, I have a problem and I am terrified to solve it. So it's something other than problem solution, because there's something about that that's just it's on this top of the thing, but it's not in the thing. Fear is being underneath the thing. Courage is being willing to say, oh, I have a fear and I'm willing to write it down, and then I'm willing to go seek a solution. And if you find a service provider that says, look, I know you're afraid, and here are some things that we can do to work around that, now you are bonded on a level that they're not going to be able to duplicate with other business owners.
That's so true. Total huge unfair advantage right here. Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, so I found some great fears, and I'm going to show you the website on the next slide. Okay. 6billionSecrets.com. Now, I have no idea if there are 6 billion secrets, but what if there were? What if the person who came up with this site said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build a site where it's completely anonymous, and you can say the thing you're afraid of, because most people don't have a place where they can tell their honest truth, because we live high stakes lives. If I tell my fears to my spouse, he might think less of me. If I tell my fears to my mother, she might lecture me. If I tell my fears to my boss, he might fire me. I'm like, the sky is falling all the time, right? And so what these people do is they will go anonymously post the things they're afraid of, just for the pure satisfaction and release of being able to say it. Okay, imagine that. Imagine you're so afraid of something that it's a relief just to type it. So this one is about losing weight, and it says this: I thought losing weight would make me happy. I thought it would give me confidence. But after a year of dieting and exercise, I feel so much more self-conscious and critical than I ever did before. I can't stop comparing myself to other people. I can't stop obsessing about my weight. I wish I could go back to the mindset I had when I was fat.
Wow.
Now, what's that like? Like, what if in your sales letter you said, look, losing weight is not all it's cracked up to be. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I sell a weight loss program, and you will be thinner, and you'll be able to squeeze into that outfit, and you'll be able to have all of these wonderful. And there's some fears here, and I'm just going to tell you straight what they are, and I'm going to have, and then you decide. This is my offer to you. This is how I'm willing to support you. If this is for you, then here's the buy now button. And if it is not for you, then I want you to know that at least I heard you, and I've given you an opportunity to think this through.
Awesome.
Here's another one that this one, it was on the home screen when I first clicked over, and this one absolutely killed me, and is relevant to the whole male versus female concept. And here it is. I want to be a professional gamer. I have a team, a clan, and a family that game. I know them in real life, and they are wonderful people. I have the skill to play in tournaments and win. I am a popular figure online, and many people know me. The problem? I have carpal tunnel syndrome, scoliosis, a weak heart, and weak eyes. Plus, I'm a girl. That in the pit of my stomach, that hurts me, because I'm raising 4 daughters. It is not that she doesn't have the support. It's not that she doesn't have the skill. It's not that she doesn't have the drive. And it's not even the physical things that hold her back. Her problem is that she's a girl, and nobody respects that.
Wow.
So if your copy is like this, I mean, if this doesn't scream 60-second sales hook, I don't know what is.
This is such a gold mine. I've been looking through this site since I saw it in your slides here, and it's just stunning. I mean, really, and keep in mind, this is anonymous. So really, this is unfiltered. People get to, and like Melanie said, sometimes for the first time, they're ever expressing it. And we're going to talk about understanding raw motion and witnessing raw motion and really understanding. And this is why you know, we get to have some fun in what we do with marketing, but people who are great at it take it very seriously, because these are people's lives we're talking about here. And when we make a promise to them that we have a solution, we need to mean it. What did Robert Gibson say? Stop thinking about the people who won't read your report and think about the people who will read it.
Absolutely.
Or your product. We get so obsessed on how do we sell more? How do we convert more people? What are the numbers? How much are you thinking about the people who are actually using it and the kind of trust they're putting in you? This is a great example of where people live and what we're promising to do our best to help them fix.
Absolutely. Now this takes us over to the bonus slides. I'm conscious of time right now. So would it be wise to move forward to Q&A?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay.
Couple questions in here now. And if you have another question, you can post it up as a comment, or you can click next that little thought bubble right there. You can change it to a question. Otherwise, I'll see it and change it to a question. Either way, just type it in the window there, and let's dive into it. Yeah, Nick made a point that you know, female gamers have sort of come into their own recently, probably akin to like the UFC. You know, it wasn't long ago before Dana White was saying women would never fight in the UFC ring, and now, you know, obviously it's one of his biggest events. So that could be an older comment, but again, it's the idea that it wasn't all the sort of physical ailments she was naming, right? It was the fact that she was a girl, and that was the thing she probably felt like, you know, powerless to overcome.
And that was the deep secret too. You notice she led with all the other things. So if you were in a sales situation with her, she's going to lead with all those other objections first, like my heart, my eyes, but if you know the secret is she's feeling self-conscious about being a girl, even though the landscape may have changed, perhaps all female gamers are now being fully embraced, but that's not her reality. And if you could let her know that the new reality is this, that she is welcome here, then that is going to be the thing that changes the game for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody please applaud Melanie. You're getting lots of applause here. This was an amazing training. I'm emotional, honestly. I knew this would be amazing. It was well worth the wait, and it's just as great as I knew it would be. So thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Welcome.
Okay, let me jump over to the questions. Okay, starting with Dean. Our buddy Dean says, have you found that specific niches correlate with specific buyer types? Good question.
I know that the objections correlate, and so I used it as a diagnostic tool and also as a way to know and quantify what the issues are. So when you go back and look at the report, or I think we can give out the PDF of the slides, right?
Yes, yes.
So that everybody can see that in the short form, which might be a handy, you could tape it on the wall or something. But you'll see the issues are going to be things like talk about cost versus need and talk about value. And so there'll be a way to quantify it that way. So it gets used twice. The objection gets used twice, but I think it's useful. I think it's a quick and dirty way to get at the issues.
Great. So this is interesting. Jeremy says he's thinking of writing, you know, as he's watching your training, it makes him want to write for all buyer types for every message. He says, is that not right?
Well, okay, so there's always two truths. Whenever you arrive at a paradox, you've probably discovered the truth. It's kind of a guiding principle in my life. But yes, everyone is one primary type, and everybody is all the types all the time. We are all beautiful, and we are all a disaster basket case all the time. But for purposes of clarity, you can only lead with one thing at a time. So pick the one that you think makes the most sense for your offer and lead with that, and use all the others as the support. And that way you'll have the best reach and you'll be able to maintain focus on your copy.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing we didn't get to that's important and relevant to that is the FAQ is a great place to quickly get to all buyer type objections. Write just at least one FAQ using the language that Melanie kind of lays out here. And if nothing else, at least, because people do tend to scan those if they're on a fence. And so at least and make it very clear, like who you're speaking to and make the objection the question, right? So people can see, aha, there's my objection. They may have no idea what their type is, but they'll see that and it'll resonate with them, and then they'll see your answer to it. And that's a great way to cover everybody without trying to go crazy and write a super long thing that covers everybody in the copy itself.
Right, and that's an important point, because nobody figures out what kind of a buyer they are and then goes to your copy. That's just a model for us. It's an internal toolkit. And so, but they do say, like, those are their for real objections. I don't know if I need this. I think it costs too much. Like, I think I can get a better return somewhere else. That's just what they say, top of mind. And so list out those. In fact, you can even write your sales letter backwards. You can just write your FAQ first.
Yeah.
Because people, I like how you mentioned this to me, Kevin, people self-select. People have their favorite issues and they go to them first. Why get in the way of that? Let them just drive their own process.
Right. Great. Ross says, when someone asks, this sounds great, but tell me more about you, is that the support me buyer?
Tell me more about you. That sounds like a trust question. It sounds to me like there hasn't been enough emotional resonance and that they would prefer to hear that in your voice. And that's two hidden questions. That's, how deeply do you know this information? Is it in your bones, or is it just something you read about online once? And what's your stake in this? Because, like, this is my money, and this is my time, and this is my life, and this is my relationships. And so if I'm gonna take a stake in this, then I need to know that you're in this too. So what's your deal? Are you for real or not?
Great. Okay, Bruce wants to know when a replay will be up. If not today, tomorrow, Bruce. I just want to make sure it all looks like it's supposed to. Let's see. So Wendy says she thinks Glow is the love appreciation type audience. Would you agree? So she came a little late. Yeah, she arrived at Wardy's part. But knowing what you know about Glow, Melanie, what would you think is her main audience?
I only have wonderful things to say about the Glow products. And yes, I think she's right. I use her products now every single day. The lip gloss smells like roses, which makes me feel only love. I go show them to people, like, smell this cleanser. If you want this. I feel whenever I open one of Wendy's products, I remember the packaging. She made, I put pictures of me unboxing this thing. It was so beautiful. She made stickers that have a little cartoon of her mixing the different potions with a wooden spoon. There is something about it that says, I care about this so deeply, and I appreciate you as my customer so deeply that I packaged this special, I scented it special. Like, you can't help but feel loved.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Melanie, Wendy exudes love. She touches people in a deep way. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So yeah, when Morty's saying, yes, definitely love me for Glow. Such a beautiful experience. Great. Okay. So it looks like those are all the questions. If anybody has any, get it up quick and we'll get to it. Otherwise, I'm going to thank Melanie for this time, all her patience, and us getting this together and getting it live. It was well worth the wait. And Melanie, I can't say it enough. You're special. What you teach is special. Talk about teaching with love. You have to love the customer as much as you love the product. And for you to, take all that energy that you've been putting into your copy, which is, not only been extremely successful for your clients, for your own business, but to care enough to want to put this together and teach it to us and share it with us means a whole lot to me, and I'm sure everybody here.
Thank you. That's wonderful feedback. I appreciate it.
So yes, thank you so much. And there'll be more. So this will go up. I'm going to first put it in the general discussion. I'll put a sticky so we can all find it very easily. Let's keep the conversation going in the thread. If you have more questions, Melanie will be monitoring the thread, answering your questions. Be sure to download her report, melaniesaladino.com. It's the first thing you'll see on the page. Be sure to read Melanie's article there in Copy Chief. Just search Melanie in the search bar on copychief.com. You'll find it. And also the awesome podcast interview we did about a month back that is all on the same topic. So a huge applause here in the comments, Melanie. Thank you so much for this, and we'll see you inside.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This was really fun for me. I really appreciate that you all showed up to support me. It's wonderful.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.